Hey guys, this is Wilson coming at you, bringing to you the movement. We're the Shepherds of Men. I'm joined here with Cam.
Hey guys.
JP.
What's up, guys?
And O.
What's up?
Trying to mimic.
Hey
I
guys.
hope you guys are enjoying yourselves because we have been for the last few hours.
Some of us more than others.
Yes,
Jeez.
all the time. And welcome to the new year. Welcome to the new year. New you. Hopefully you're figuring some things out, especially off the last couple of episodes. Powerful information. So hope you're applying it. Today we're going to be talking about how you can gain the hearts of your children. And I've been reading the Resolution of Man by Stephen Kendrick, his brother Alex Kendrick, and then Randy Alcorn. If I mispronounce that, sorry. But anyway, those are the authors. And I've been reading this book for on and off for the last little bit, and I've learned several things as being a father with a 5-year-old son. I'm constantly looking for ways to become better as a father and be the best father I can be. And they have a list of 10 things that we as men do to lose the hearts of our kids. And it was pretty profound to me. I was like, okay, there are some things on this that I could do better. And I wanted to talk about this list and just kind of break each one down. There's 10 of them. So I want to just kind of go through with the Shepherds, not reading this book if you haven't yet, but just your own takeaway from it on how this could be effective to your children in a negative way. So the first one on the list was your absence. Mm-hmm. So you being absent into your children's life is very detrimental. And I want to, whoever wants to go first on this particular one.
Was there a question or just how significant we think that is?
Yeah, like how in your own mind, why would that be significant?
Well, I will tell you how significant I think it is the reason we started Shepherds of Men was because there's not enough present fathers, physically, emotionally, however, whatever role. I mean, some of them are there, but they're not there. Some of them just aren't there. We've thrown out stats over 67 episodes about that stuff. I think it is, frankly, one of, if not the most important thing that we can do in our society is to have present fathers. Like Absolutely. It is drastically different when dad's not there and playing that role. And have been passionate about this and more passionate every day about it because I see what's happening and I understand. And as I talk to professionals from different arenas, I start realizing how much more damage it does when the father's not around and when that core, that family core is not there, that family unit is not there. I look back too because only about a year and a half ago, I made a lot of changes. 2 years ago, however much time it was, a year and a half ago, we started making some changes within our own household that I brought myself back into being present more physically. Like I was always present with my heart and with my just emotional connection with my kids and stuff like that. But there was a lot of time, and I had a conversation with my buddy Phil about this recently, about just like I was missing a lot. I was chasing things that were important, but they weren't the most important, and I wasn't doing it necessarily the right way. And thankfully, we had some really challenging conversations, i.e. 3 episodes ago, and some things that weren't fun for me and my wife to talk about. And I realized there were some things I needed to do differently, and I am just forever grateful that I had to go through some really tough shit to make some changes of some habits that I had. It's just life habits of running and going and doing and feeling productive and, those kinds of things. And then understanding that I had 2 young children at home. Now, my oldest son was older already, but my 2 little ones, like over the last year and a half, 2 years, there's been so much time I've been able to spend with them that honestly, if I had kept the same schedule that I did prior to that, I'm talking about like infinite amount of things that I would have missed and the connection we would have. Now, I'm not saying that there's never a time for that. So like, for instance, now we're recording, I'll get home late, but it's not, that's from time to time. Like, I'm not telling you, like, this is not an excuse for dads to sit at home and not go have a dream because don't nobody want daddy at home without a dream. I promise you that, because you're just a weak lump and you're not accomplishing anything and nobody can follow you. But yes, as far as the importance of it, utmost importance.
Yeah, I would agree. And to your point, when you're chasing a dream and you're chasing something that's important, that's impactful, Those are the times you need to have those conversations with your kids, and they should know, daddy's not home because daddy's doing something really important, really impactful, and something to look up to. So I think it's obviously extremely important that you're present and involved in your kids, because for one, they're a blank canvas. And at an early age, your kids, you're painting their future on a blank canvas. So you're feeding into your kids constantly. And if you're not there, somebody will. So we talked about this previously about fathers being, missing in the household and stuff like that. And when you talk about it from a sense of just being absent, so fathers left the house, whatever, divorce, whatever it was that happened, they're going to look for that male role model somewhere else. And generally, they're not a good judge of character early on in life. So they're going to find somebody that they, probably wish they didn't later on. So I think obviously your kid's future is at stake with that. But also I think that when I hear present, it doesn't necessarily mean a father in the house. Because you can be in the house and be sitting right next to your kid and not be present.
For sure.
And I'm going to tell you, your kids, consumer society has told us and convinced us that buying your kids stuff is going to make your kids happy. But we've talked about this previously. As far as experiences with your kids, like, you should take time and deliberately out of your schedule to spend time with your kids doing what they're doing. That's something that I struggle with, right? So sometimes, like, they want to watch some silly stuff or something, whatever, and I'm just like, it's almost, mind-numbing for me a little bit. But sometimes you have to take that time to go, all right, I'm going to sit down with you, we're going to watch it, I'm going to ask you some questions about it, and stuff, and take that opportunity to figure out why they like it, what makes them tick and stuff. And then, outside of that, taking them outside, like riding the dirt bikes, throwing the football out there, getting outside, doing things with them without other distractions, and setting your phone down. Because and I think there's two sides of this coin, right? There are the absent piece of crap fathers that have left their family and abandoned their kids, and then there are the fathers that are so driven and so consumed with progress and what they're trying to do in their careers or their businesses or whatever it may be, that they're there, but they're not there, right? Like their kids are kind of on their own. They're totally focused on what they're doing. They have singular focus there, which is, I don't think it's quite as bad as not being there altogether, but it's pretty close to as bad, because your kids will still find something else to, look at if you're not involved. So
on that point, if you go through your office and it's all your family on vacations and you're not included, that we're speaking to you. You need to give your presence there. And I like that you said that, and y'all both hit on the same topics that I was going to say. So on to the next one. Your anger. How can your anger affect your children?
Okay, so this is a big one for me. I'm all about the kind of structure and respect and stuff. And when my kids do something outside of what the expectations, especially the known expectations are, it fires me up, because I'm big into the respect factor, and I feel like it's very disrespectful when you don't. And I think to a certain extent, I've had to tell myself that they're a child, they don't have good judgment yet, and instead of getting mad, why don't you have a conversation with them? And sometimes, Dina has to pull me back and go, hey, just calm down. And one of the good things about it is let yourself calm down, rethink about the situation, and go look at your kid while they're sleeping. Yeah. Makes me feel like an ass. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It does. I will yell. I'll yell at him for something, and I'll get really mad at him. And then after I calm down and stuff like that, when he's sleeping, sometimes, like a creep, I'll go up there and look at him while he's sleeping and stuff. And it just, because I read that in a book, that a guy had just got all over his kid about some stuff, and then went in there and wrote down like kind of what he was feeling while he was watching his kid sleep, and all this stuff. And it was pretty impactful for me. I mean, it was one of those things that was like, he's an innocent, little kid, and I'm not saying that they're completely innocent, because mine can tear some stuff up, but it's one of those things where it's like, like he's being molded right now, and he's going to make mistakes, and he should make mistakes. Like, that's what you talk about all the time. Like, make mistakes. Mm-hmm. You are going to go through failure to success. But yet on the back end of that, when he fails, you yell at him. So I have to, it's a conscious effort for me to constantly remind myself, like, dude, it's okay. He spilled a drink. It's okay. You can clean it up.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, anger more so comes from the little things. What's weird is the bigger things that happen are more conversational for me. You know?
Yeah. And we're a little different there because or just in my response, because like the first few times or something I think might just be like a neglect or, you're not paying attention and you're doing something and they don't live up to the expectation. I get frustrated with it, but when I get frustrated, and my wife can tell you, I get quiet. Like I'm like, or I'm huffing or something, something stupid. Like I want you to know I'm frustrated, but I'm not going to say it.
Right.
Yeah.
You got to ask.
Yeah.
Ask me what's wrong, please.
Exactly. Somebody ask me. No, but so I'll get a little, but the respect part is when I'll kind of pop off. If there's a blatant disrespect, and it's one thing if it's coming from my 15-year-old, that I'm okay with getting mad about that, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I mean, he's 15. Like, we had a little situation recently, and I flat out told him to get out of my face because I was about to punch him.
Yeah.
And people are like, oh, I told him to get out. He did. He moved. I didn't hit him. But if he'd have stayed there, there was a strong possibility it was about to happen. Right. It was like it had gotten to that level because it was just, and even then it was like just I don't know that it was intentional disrespect. I don't know if anything he does is intentional. But my 2-year-old, he's just being a 2-year-old, and it can be disrespectful and I can be unhappy about it, but I have to temper my response again to like what you were saying to understand his age. Now, all that being said, I hope people don't pull back too much on this because I think there's a difference between anger and disciplining your child. What's that? Passion.
Yeah. We're gonna get into that one.
Yeah, and so I feel like our society as a whole has really moved drastically towards this benefit of the doubt bullshit. And certainly there's a time and a place for that. Certainly. Sure. But there's a time and a place for that.
Yes.
And when we've passed that time and place, now we need to start learning.
If you're a teenager.
The way I learned, maybe different for other people, the way I learned was a piece of leather across my ass.
Yep.
And I only had to learn once or twice. Yep. And I was all learned up.
You wore chaps too?
Yeah, right.
Hands down.
Different kind of leather. Oh. Well, maybe the same kind. I don't know, but just anyways. I didn't grow up in San Francisco. So my dad disciplined me, and he disciplined me thoroughly when required, but it was only required once or twice. Right. And that's what I try to remind people is like, did your dad spank you? My dad beat the hell out of me. When I say he spanked me with a belt, not a little bit.
Right.
Like spanked me I will never forget it for the rest of my life. But he only had to do it once.
Yep.
Right? And he always says, I got my bluff in on you. And he was right.
Yeah.
He was 100% right.
Yep.
And so wherever your line is there, but I just think that society as a whole has moved so much into this. We just let kids get away with too much. Yep. In my personal opinion, I think the lack of discipline has really caused an issue, and partially there's a lack of discipline because there's a lack of fathers.
Yeah, I think there's a difference between the anger and and commanding respect within your household, and that's a big thing. Is you could rule your household with a stern fist and still be loving and compassionate about it.
And my dad always, now he got me real good once, but he had to kind of spank me a couple other times, or get on to me about other things. But he always, when it was over, came and told me he loved me.
Yep.
Always.
Yep.
So that was the part that I remember too. I remember that he disciplined me, but I also remember he came and gave me a hug and said,
that's the first place they learn how to respect authority.
Yeah.
Is in the house.
Well, the other thing about anger that we didn't touch on, because it was set up as children, is also the anger with your spouse. So you being...
I spank my wife sometimes.
But I'm talking about anger, not discipline. Anger. So, but I mean, if you get angry, the kids are automatically going to gravitate to their mom for most cases because they just have that love and affection and whatever. And my son's protective of my wife. So if we were wrestling and messing around or whatever, he'll come after me and defend her. So there are some pieces in the book. It was talking about how you could lose your child's heart by letting your anger loose on your wife in a way where it's not, conducive. So that was another point too. So
the difference between having a argument or whatever in front of your kids that leads to a productive result, as opposed to just being an angry bastard that's yelling at your wife all the time.
Just yelling at your wife about something. Yep.
That's the point. So
they
now
should see the resolution.
Yeah,
exactly. The other thing is unjust discipline. You kind of mentioned that, and I can speak on this one. There were some times in my life that I felt like that there was some unjust discipline. Luckily, I was rooted in my Christian faith that it didn't push me too far, because it's talking about in some things that you do as a parent or as a father, you could push your kids down roads that you don't want them to go based off of being a little too extreme. In that sense, though, he did do the same thing. He always said that he loved me, or he always came back and would be apologetic, or just kind of some kind of sort of like trying to make it right, which did help in the situation. But you could really push somebody to the far extreme, because my wife's dad was done that by his stepdad. It pushed him to rebel and basically just say screw you, and then and cause trouble and mischief and just not be a good kid. Y'all have anything to talk about injustice?
I did, and then I kept listening to you, and I forgot it. And I was telling myself I should have wrote that down, like JP does. It's a good example over there, JP.
So
yeah,
that's what I'm speaking of. You have something to add to?
So I don't have an experience from when I was younger about having unjust. I kind of do, but it wasn't discipline. It was. I mean, you're talking about abuse.
You're abused.
Yeah. At that point in time. So my mom was very, very justified and cleared in everything that she did. And my mom, I grew up without a dad, and my mom made sure that she made up for the fact that he wasn't there. And my mom would tan my hide if she needed to. And it wasn't like get up to your room and do it. It was like drop them.
Yep.
Yeah.
And now, I mean, I've had some stupid stuff in the past from an abuse standpoint, stuff like that. That wasn't obviously my mom, but it's one of those things where it does affect you. But I mean, the thing that sucks about that is you put a kid in a position where he's got to make a decision. Mm-hmm. You put a kid in a position where he has to go, am I going to go rebellion, or am I going to learn from this and it's going to make me stronger as a person? And a lot of times, unfortunately, young kids are not mature enough to say, hey, I can use this to make me stronger.
Yep.
They use it as a resentment towards, authority.
Yep.
Well, this is kind of what I was thinking. It brought me back to it. But I think, a blessing for you is that your mom actually did, even considering that your dad wasn't around, she did at least attempt to discipline to the same level, whether it was 100% proper or not or whatever, she had a stern discipline when necessary.
Absolutely.
Is what it sounds like. And now this is what I see in our own house to an extent. My wife's pretty tough, but she's still mama, but what I see a lot in other areas is, women concern themselves with whether or not the child is going to like them. Men, or at least in my belief, for my role as a father, and I have told all three of my kids, even the 2-year-old, I don't need you to like me. Don't really care if you like me, Now, I have an awesome relationship with all my kids, but especially as they get older, my stepson, dude, it's not my responsibility for us to be boys. It's not my responsibility for you to like me. I love you, and I hope you love me. And if you do like me, that's a bonus. But if my goal is just to have you like me, then I'm not playing the role I need to play. And so what'll happen is, I think, is a father sometimes can be a little more stern and disciplined, spankings or something like that. And it doesn't, I'm not emotionally, I don't like spanking my kids, but I can be like, okay, it sucks, but we got to do it. And then you're going to get over it. And I'm going to say, I love you. You're going to love me. Women sometimes tend to be more like, I don't want him to I don't want to create separation, where there's a divide there, because, he's not going to think of me the same way or whatever. And that goes back to, I feel like the same issue we're having is that there's fewer women that are willing to actually do true discipline if they're a single mom, like maybe your mom did, because they're worried, is he going to leave, or is he going to whatever? Like, that's not the concern. The concern is, are you going to teach him? in my opinion.
You got to have the future in mind.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
The whole time, like when I'm doing so, because a lot of times it's uncomfortable. I don't want to make him cry or spank his butt and stuff like that. But I understand that I need to plant the seeds now so that the harvest later is good.
Right.
And that's something that I think helps me to make decisions when it comes to stuff like that. Is okay. What's the future look like? Is this something I can let go? Or is this something we need to take the head off the snake right now?
Yep. Be mature about that.
Yep.
Good stuff. I like it. The next one is harsh criticism. What do y'all think about that whenever you hear that? Harsh criticism to your child.
I mean, when you first say it, I kind of cringe a little bit. I don't know that harsh criticism is necessary for, I think being critical or giving them positive criticism about things that maybe, like say they're an athlete or something and they're wanting to be better in some arena or a musician or anything, that if they're asking for coaching and you're real with them, I think that's one thing that's positive. Now, if you're criticizing their every move while they're becoming young adults, I think that's stupid, honestly.
So it takes me back to somebody like who played collegiate football or, went somewhere in football and then their kid is not to their standard or their what they used to.
Come on, Johnny, you can do it. Throw that fucking pigskin.
I don't want your life.
Right. That's what it brings me up to. I mean, because it is a disconnect to not try to live vicariously through your kids. Like say, hey, I want somebody like say our kids get into racing. That's something that I wanted to do, but we didn't have the funds to do it when I was growing up. So I would have to disconnect myself from that on pushing him too hard to where it's not something he wants to do. It's what I want him to do for him.
So here's, and I don't have an answer on it because I'm the same way. I think harsh criticism is kind of a self-explanatory thing. Like we're not, it's not constructive. It doesn't make any sense. Constructive criticism is good. But what do you, and I want to ask you guys about this. What do you guys do when one of your kids is involved in a self-destructive behavior that's not necessarily being a bad kid or doing anything that they're technically not supposed to be doing? But I'll give you guys a little bit of insight. I am absolutely, I get frustrated about laziness. Mm-hmm. It drives me nuts. So when the criticism, trying to be positive about things, all that stuff is not necessarily working, what do you guys do at that point?
I ram my head through a wall.
My first thought would be
# joking, not joking.
In your situation, I know who you're talking about. And what I would do, hopefully it would work. I don't know because I'm not in that situation. So I couldn't tell you truthfully like this would work. I would just make sure that everything that we have on our schedule for that weekend or whenever that person comes around, I want to instill activities is I would have activities going. Like, hey, we're going there. This is what we're doing. This is what we're doing. This is what we're doing. Not give them a chance to be lazy at my house.
No.
That would be the only way I could combat that without being critical and overstepping my bounds, calling them lazy almost, because you're like,
so what if you're trying to instill a mindset into this individual rather than keeping them busy?
Yep.
If you're trying to instill a mindset, that way it stays with them. And the positive talk and all that stuff is not.
I would find something that he's into and then just hammer it home and just keep him busy and be like, hey, don't you feel good about being this productive? Look at what you've accomplished. Let's take a recording of like, hey, you did this in day one. Like say you're playing t-ball and going into, baseball.
Yeah, there may
we're
be
out
something
there
to that actually. Yeah.
Yeah. Say, hey, dude, this is where you started. You remember this?
Mm.
Look where you're at now, and kind of try to positively reinforce them in that regard. But find something that they're into, not something that you're into. That's a very big deal.
Yep.
Very big deal.
Yeah. Positive reinforcement. Sorry, go ahead.
Mm.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Positive reinforcement and negative reinforcement both can be productive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I know your situation closely, and it's tough because especially when you have multiple channels of input or lack thereof.
Yeah.
It can be a heck of a challenge for sure. And I don't have the equation to fix that. That is something that is equally as frustrating.
Yep.
If not more so. But I do like. I don't care for the keep them busy thing because then I feel like it's not my role to entertain you all weekend.
Well, my problem is when I'm gone, what do you do?
Right.
I want to make it where
that's
when
got to
I'm
be a
gone,
mindset, not just a,
Well, my thought was if he's getting bigger and unhealthy, always have some activities to do as a family, that you're still building a memory, you're still instilling stuff in him. And hopefully that exhaustion, he'll break down with you and be like, man, I don't ever do this at my other place, blah, blah, blah. You can maybe open up that extra level is what I didn't go as deep in that thought process, but that's kind of the route I was going.
I've reached a point personally in a similar situation where I'm like, I don't know what else I can do other than be a good example.
Yep.
I can be a good example and I can pray over it. That's the two things I know to do.
Yep,
you know? And outside of that, the words don't, at some point you're saying the same words over and over and over and they're not going anywhere.
Yep.
You know, so
your actions are ultimately going to speak.
Oh, sure. Yep.
So lack of compassion. That's the next one. Lack of compassion.
I mean, if you're cold, you might as well not be present.
Yeah,
you know, you've got to have compassion. You got to care. Now, I think it's like everything else we've talked about. There's a ditch on either side of it. So there is an extreme to, like, if you're overly compassionate, then you may be making your young man a little bitch.
Right.
You know, and I know that sounds harsh to some people, but that's why I said it that way, so you will listen. Because yes, mama needs to kiss the boo-boos and daddy needs to kiss the boo-boos, but also daddy also needs to do like what Josh talks about, tell them the boo-boos are awesome.
Yeah.
I'll give it a kiss just because I think it's awesome.
Yeah.
You know, so be compassionate, and not just from a physical standpoint, but when they get their feelings hurt, be compassionate about it, but instill the mindset of, man, we don't get affected by that stuff. That's not a big deal. You know, somebody hurt your feelings, like, we've had our own boys together. Yeah. So, you know, Maverick told me I wasn't his best friend anymore. You know what? And they're kids. They're
kids. Like, he's 4.
Yeah, they're 4 years old. You know, but it hurts his feelings.
Yeah.
And you listen, dude. He's just saying whatever he's saying. Secondly, if he don't want to be your best friend, he's the one missing out.
Yeah.
You know, so just help him see it differently.
Yeah.
You know.
No, and I think you're right about the way that you look at compassion. I like the way that you said it. It wasn't what you said; it was how you said it. You're like, man, those boo-boos don't bother you.
Yeah.
You know, like it was almost like,
yeah,
you know, like it was one of those like, hey, we're buddies. I think there's a time and a place for that kind of stuff. I think compassion's important because you can show that you care, but you don't have to make them a little bitch about it. You can be like, oh, God, it's a good wipeout. You good? You good, man?
Yeah,
you good? Because there's compassion there. It shows that you want it, but it's not like you can stand up.
Yeah.
You can stand up. You can get up. You know,
I care, but I also know that you're tough.
Exactly. But there's certain times of day. So like first thing in the morning and at night where we tone things down a little bit. You know, the melatonin starts to kick in and stuff like that. And there's hugs and some kisses. Yeah. But I think like the first 5 minutes of the morning and the last 5 minutes of the day is generally a nice solid hug. You know, and a little bit more soft compassion from that standpoint. But like throughout the day, you know, whatever it is, I think there's something about, you know, going to bed on a good hug from your dad and, you know, knowing that, you know, I don't know. That's just how we've always done that kind of stuff.
We do the same in our house.
I'm very huggy with my boys. Yeah. I mean, I get that from my mom. That is the love language, the touch love language side of me.
We're huggers.
That is where it shows is, with my kids, and I just love hugging on my kids. I mean, I love cuddling with my kids and all that kind of stuff. And I think you can do that and not, you can do that and still have that disciplinary boundary, you know. But you're showing them, whether it be at the beginning and the end of the day or whenever, you just show them throughout the day. They remember the hugs, man. Yeah. So when you do get on to them, they remember that you care, you know.
Well, I think long term, one of the things that'll help you with that is when a man hugs you, your father, you know, whatever hugs you. As a kid, you don't feel insecure about showing that compassion later on, and stuff. And that's something that I struggle with. You know, like with my mom, we were huggers. You know, when we see each other, we hug every time we do it. It's not like a, you know, hey, how you doing? It's instant hug right off the bat. But for men, for a long time, I was like,
yep. Boundary.
And what's funny is I didn't even realize that, you know, I did that, but I always kind of gave myself some room from other men. And, you know, luckily I've had guys step into my life that are good influences and stuff like that. And I'm a physical touch thing. I think that was instilled in me from my mom, but I think that's really important because like your boys will have zero problem or any insecurities about that with other men. They'll be able to dap them up, give them hugs, come in there, I love you, bro, kind of thing. That was weird to me.
Yeah.
That was odd.
Yeah, until I gave you the 2 full hand ass grabs.
Man,
it was like,
dude, we used to, especially those thin dress pants. Oh man, we used to do that. And every once in a while, I'd get that middle finger curl around.
Then I realized you didn't have underwear on. Whoa!
Damn.
Oh man,
the good old days.
That went downhill quickly.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, it did.
Or uphill.
Let's go to the next one. No, I was going to say.
Let's go to the next one.
Lack of compassion. Here's a good story that my son woke up with a dream last night. So he came to the room. I heard him before he got over to his mom's side. I said, "Hey, come here." I said, "Hey, what's up?" And he goes, "I had a bad dream." I said, "Okay, you good?" He goes, "Yeah, just didn't like the dream." I said, "I understand." I said, "You want me to go tuck you back in?" Because what would have happened is my wife would have just let him roll into the bed.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he's 5, so he needs to grow out of that.
Yeah.
So I picked him up, put him back in his bed. He was upset about it because he couldn't stay with mom and dad. And he said, he goes, "Dad, every time I'm in this room, I have bad dreams." And I said, "Son, it's mom and dad has bad dreams. It's okay. It just happens. You just wake up, you realize that everything's fine, go back to bed." And I explained that to him, and then he was fine. Just saying, "Hey, it's mom and dad, deal with it. It's okay. I understand where you're coming from."
We've
but
talked
this
about
is your
that
bed.
and other stuff. Sometimes you just need to hear the fact that somebody else went through it.
Yeah.
Even as an adult, sometimes you just need to hear, "Oh, you went through that too? Okay, cool."
That's it. This is something you guys can talk about. Favoritism.
Oh, like children over
With children. This is with the
Oh,
children.
I was about to say, yeah, Cameron definitely likes me a lot more than you.
I feel it. I know what you feel out there, kids. The struggle is real.
Yeah, so that's, and
I don't know because I only have one, so I'm not there yet. If that even is a easy thing to do, or if that's a reality, I don't. Sharing the same amount of equal love for 2 kids is not there yet.
So even our situations are a little different because all of his children are biological to him, and one of mine isn't. And so yeah, it's unique for sure. I think, admittedly, there is not the same connection necessarily, and this could be a shortcoming of mine because I know people that straight up adopt or whatever, and seem to have the same connection. So it could just be something that's different in mine and Caden's relationship, and specifically. But I certainly feel more connected to my 2 biological children, but I've been there since birth, whereas Caden was 7. So if you consider the fact that you haven't known somebody for 7 years longer than somebody else, then there's going to be a different connection anyways. As far as favoritism, I don't know that plays into that. Even with all 3 of them across the board, there's not like, hey, they get special treatment over him, right, or he gets special treatment over the other one. They equally have the same expectation. So that's kind of the way I look at the favoritism thing. Favoritism to me would be like one of them gets off the hook about something. I expect the same out of all of them.
Yeah.
I expect the same. Now, they're different ages. They're ages 2 to 15. So the expectation of the 2-year-old is different than the 15-year-old, but I'm going to be honest with you, it's not much different. It's not much different. Like there is, but from a mindset perspective, the things that we're instilling in the 2-year-old are the same as we're still instilling the 15-year-old, just at a little bit different level because their life is different, their mind's different right now. But
do you have anything that keeps you in check to keep you from having any favoritism?
You asked me about this when Cash was born, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And you were asking me about, like, what does that feel like? And anybody in this, any of the other guys can talk about this too. What does it feel like when you have another biological child? And like, cause you know how much you love your son.
Yeah.
Like he is your world. Like they're just, it's hard. If you don't have kids, I used to hear this. If you don't have kids, it's hard to explain how much you love them. It's just hard. Like there's no way to put it into words. Mm-hmm. So then you think, and I know when Owen, when it was just Owen before Cash was born, I remember thinking I could be totally satisfied with just Owen.
Yep.
And then, surprise, here comes Cash. He wasn't planned. And even during the pregnancy, I was like, this is going to be weird because, like, Owen's my boy. And when I say my boy, I don't, like, I'm his father. But, like, this is my dude, and there's this bond, and there's this relationship, and it's like, I don't see how this could possibly happen again. And then Cash is born, and it's like, I mean, for the first 6 months, it's like Dad doesn't exist. But,
Right.
but as they start to grow now, Cash is my dude. We got this bond. It's different than my bond with Owen, and yet it's just as deep. So they're different relationships. There's not one that's better than the other one. They're just different, and they're both equally awesome. And you really start to understand, again, coming from a believer's perspective, then you start to really understand what true love is like, because you have a true love connection with your kids, and you could have 1,000 of them, and I think you'd still feel the same way about each one of them. Like you start to understand your capacity of love is more than you thought it was. Because I think sometimes as a person we think I can only love so much. There's only so much of me I can give, and then you keep having kids, and it's like, nope, there's really not. Like there's more in there. Like there's no way I could sit there and pick. No way.
Right.
Like if you said, here's your 3 kids, pick, I'd pick me. Let's get rid of me.
Yep.
Right.
I'd have to.
Yep.
There'd be no way. So.
No, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think ultimately the way that you avoid the favoritism is by clear standards and principles and expectations in your house. Nobody's above the law in the house except for me and my wife. So it leaves the kids having to abide by the law. Every single one of them do. But to Cameron's point, that is probably the truest statement that you can make is they're all different, and you love them because they're different. You love them all to the same depth, but I don't think you can get a deeper love. That's why there is no favoritism. You're so deeply rooted because, and like he said, you love your kids so much. I mean, they're a part of you. They are who you are. So like if the bucket only goes, down 1 foot, then you got 2 buckets and you're standing in both of them. Which one are you deeper in? Well, you're same depth, and it's the same thing. Like there's no farther that you can love that child than having the child. So when you have 3 of them, if you're an engaged parent, it's hard not to. Now, does one frustrate you more than the other one? Yeah, but that doesn't have anything to do with favoritism. That has to do with they're not abiding by the rules like the other ones are,
Right.
But I mean, and it's it's a valid concern with people, but I think one of the things is it goes back to like, you're never going to be ready to have a kid. Like no matter how ready you try to get, you're never going to be ready to have a kid. You have a kid, then you learn how to have a kid after you have the kid. And it's the same thing. Like you're going to have that concern. Like, man, if we have another one, how are we going to do this? And then like, am I going to love this one as much as I love that one? We had those conversations, and now we're having a third one, and there's really no or fourth one. There's God, how many kids do I have? Jeez, we're having a fourth one, and now it's like, I mean, we don't even have that conversation. Yeah. Like it's not even a conversation of like, are we going to love this one as much as the other 3? We're kind of like, well, it's going to happen. It's going to come in. And then you start to become a squad, right? And when you're a squad, you don't necessarily just love one more than the other. They're all players on the team, and so I think you hit the nail on the head, Cameron. I think all I did was repeated what you said.
That's good stuff.
I don't blame you.
Next one is hypocrisy or hypocritical. Being hypocritical that's a really good one.
Yep.
Wait,
Let's start.
Do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah.
Yep.
I love that.
Well,
That's
your
great.
kids will keep you humble for sure, and they'll keep you in check. I mean, like honestly, one of the greatest things I could say about having kids is that it'll keep you on your toes. I mean, it'll make you do what you say.
Especially if you listen to what we said in the past couple episodes and talked about verbalizing your intentions and what you're going to do. Your kids will hold you accountable for that, and they'll call you out. They'll call me out about stuff like what we were talking about with like speech. We don't say can't, Daddy.
Yeah.
Shut up, boy.
I'll smack you.
Sure don't.
You're the one that has to listen to the law of this house.
It's like part of you's pissed and part of you's proud. Like,
Yeah.
That's right.
Well, you could always play that back and be like, I would just test you, make sure you're paying attention.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, not
They're
mine.
not stupid.
Not
mine.
My mother did this, and I love her to death, and you guys know her. So she would always say, do as I say, not as I do. And one of the biggest things that she would do that on is credit cards and spending. And man, I followed straight in suit.
Didn't work, did it?
No, I
No.
didn't. I followed straight in suit with her. I remember one time she was trying to pay groceries, and she would write a check. You know how you could write a check back then and they wouldn't go through right away? And she just told me as a little kid, we ain't got no money, but I hope this check goes through, And I go, she goes, she's in the line, and you know how innocent and stupid I can be sometimes. I'm in the line with her, and the cashier's right there, and I go, Ma, you just said we don't have money in the account.
Shut up.
We can't give her a check. Oh, dude, it was.
She'd
It was
lose her
rough.
mind. Oh, he's kidding. This kid's so funny.
And at the same time, they're buying all the name brand and expensive stuff and like sparkling water.
Exactly.
Well, she knew she was going to get paid. It's going to clear by the time the check
They
gets
haven't
clear.
yet.
Right.
Dude, that's a big one though. I mean, that's certainly one to take a minute for people to think about is not being a hypocrite. Like if you do have a standard for your kids, you should have at least that standard for yourself.
Oh, at the very least. If you ain't having the same standard,
Well, keep
they're
in mind,
they're gonna do what they see.
They are going to do what they see. And if you're not happy with where you're at in life, then you better start acting different.
Well, there's another, if
they'll be with
if
you.
you're not happy about where your kids are, like how much are you growing yourself, you know? Like if you're like, man, this kid, whatever, follow that with whatever, like, well, look at yourself in that arena, you know?
Well, I always think about like, I like to think about the future and stuff. And I like to think about my boys, or my daughter that's on the way, sitting there in 20, 30, 40 years going, Dad, you made me this way. Now, is that a good or a bad thing? Does my son sit there and go, Dad, you made me this way and bring a tear to my eye because he's doing some big shit and he's happy? Or is it,
brings a tear to your eye because he's on the other side of the glass.
That's exactly right. And I've been a bad example or whatever. So I think that you need to keep that in mind when it comes to example.
that's huge right there. That is huge.
And I think I want to say this just because it popped in my mind. There's people out there that have done everything they know to do and been the best example they could possibly be, and they still had a prodigal son.
Yep.
And I'm sure have racked their brain. What could I have done different? What could I have done? What could, maybe nothing. Like at some point, if you really truly loved your child and disciplined your child, did the things that you thought you were supposed to do, and you may just need to forgive yourself and just, again, pray for that kid that he come back in line,
Well, you got to understand, you can't control them.
At some point, they're an adult.
They're an adult.
Yeah, they're going to do what they're going to do.
Yep.
Yeah, but at that point, you better be pretty comfortable with what you did.
Yeah, exactly.
And if you can look back and go, listen, I wasn't perfect, but I was a good example, and I lived my life on principles, then, that's something you can hang your hat on for sure.
And on that note, if you were one that messed up, make sure you own up to it and tell them, hey, look, this has been eating at me for years. I need to tell you something. And have a heart-to-heart talk with whoever that might be and make it right.
Yeah.
That could release them from that.
Yeah.
The bondage.
Next one is hurting their mother. We all know this.
I beat my wife on a regular basis. Are we recording?
I actually heard you saying differently earlier.
She beats me
all the time. I don't really have to say much on that one, but if you're a scumbag out there beating on a wife, come see me.
Or emotionally.
I'll take care of you.
Yeah, I was about to say, we could all have a good conversation. We need to talk about that.
Yeah, we got room at the table.
Yep.
Yeah, don't ever fucking touch a woman.
Yeah.
But also from a verbal standpoint, emotional standpoint, like you need to be really aware of, like we're talking about, chastising our children. Like, listen, your kids are going to see how much you love on your wife too.
Yep.
So like if you're not doing that, like you need to be intentional about showing that love, but you're going to have some high volume conversations in your marriage. That's just a given. You might want to try to have those in private when possible or when necessary, depending on how sensitive that topic is. But I've also heard JP say, and I agree, that you're going to have some discussions in front of the kids too, but with a resolution,
Absolutely.
So that they know that it's like, hey, it's not that they hate each other; they just disagree and they worked it out.
Well, we have the conversation.
Very important.
I've had my little one come to me and go, "Why do you and mommy get mad at each other?" And I was like, "Well, sometimes we get frustrated. Sometimes we have a difference of opinion. Sometimes we see things differently, and sometimes it requires us to have those tough conversations to understand like where we can make ourselves better for each other." And he's like, "Oh, so you guys aren't mad?" I'm like, "No, we're not mad anymore. We're good. You saw me and mommy kiss just a minute ago and stuff." And he was like, "Oh, okay." And I'll be darned if like it was either the next day or the day after, he said something to Dina about it and stuff. And Dina said, "Well, sometimes we just argue and stuff." And Maverick said, "You guys don't argue, you just have discussions."
Hey, it goes back to that.
I love it.
Right on.
All right.
Well, the last two is misunderstanding. So when you misunderstand, you're not on the same page with your child. maybe I took this as more of like, when you're disciplining your child, make sure you understand where they're coming from, why they did that thing before you discipline them in a harsh way, because it could be something they just didn't know anything about, or a misunderstanding on what your law truly was, because maybe you were lax and you didn't really go through with it. But then when you did, they didn't get the lesson. I don't know.
So I make them repeat it. So a lot of times, and what I take by misunderstanding is you misinterpreting them acting out or them misinterpreting what the law is, right? And by law, I mean, what are the rules in your house? You
have the golden rule in your house?
But we don't.
My dad taught me the golden rule. That I make the gold, so I make the rules.
Yeah.
I got the gold.
I thought you meant. I thought you meant treat others as you want to be treated. No. But yes, that's an understood. We live in a dictatorship in my house.
Right. Exactly right. But until you turn 18 and get out.
I think it's one of those things I like to do a lot. Is when things go south or something is not up to my expectation or whatever it is. I'll ask the question. Like before I get really mad and I'm frustrated at this point and it's a stern question. It's not like a, hey buddy, what's the rule? It's like, hey, what's the expectation? And he'll repeat it back. And then my next statement is a very straightforward, it's not going to happen again, is it? No, sir. And I think that's another part right there is teaching your kids respect. Mm-hmm. Teaching your kids how to say yes, sir, yes, ma'am, no, sir. No, ma'am. Thank you. God bless you. Stuff like that. The little things like that. Just teach them that kind of stuff. And I correct him constantly about that. Like, especially if it's a stern kind of thing. Now, if he's running around playing, he's like, yeah, dad, or whatever. No big deal. But when I'm talking to you man to man and we're talking about where you did something wrong and I'm trying to find out if you understand what the policy is or the law is in this house and you repeat it back to me and I say this is never going to happen again, the response better be yes, sir. Mm-hmm. If it's not, you got one more shot.
Yep. Oh, even with the little ones, like if there's a reprimanding of anything, when I'm finished, and then it's the same kind of thing. Do you understand? And if it's a yeah, I was like, no. Do you understand? Yes, sir.
Yep.
That's it.
Right. That's and then we're done. Yep. As my dad would always say, okay, great, we're done. It's over.
We'll move on. Yep.
And I think that's important because, and we've talked about this, hit on this a little bit. I think it is important to say, we're done, it's over. Because for me, it is. Yep. If you understand, we've grown from it. I'm not thinking about it anymore. I'm not dwelling on it. I'm not still mad at you. But I think it's important for the kids to hear that too, because it doesn't need to be, in my opinion, daddy's mad at me. Yep. It needs to be daddy's teaching me.
Yep.
Right.
If he's mad, then daddy's always mad. Like, dad, like he doesn't like me, or whatever. He doesn't love me, even worse. But if it's daddy's upset because I did something wrong, but once we talked about it, we're over it and we're good, that's different.
I understand the follow-up's important with that too. Yep. It's done, we're over with. They do it again. Mm-hmm. It's important to follow through.
Have to.
And I'm talking about with your hand or whatever means of discipline. If you want to take a belt or whatever needs to be done, I guess determined based on what the severity of what they did was and how thoroughly you want to get that lesson ingrained. But I think that follow-up is important. I don't think that you should have that conversation 4 times in one day. Like, what did we just talk about?
Yeah, 7 minutes ago.
I just tell you to stop. Do you understand what? Because when he said, I understand, and he repeated it back to me, at that point, what he did was a deliberate disobedience.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
At that point, and that's not tolerated. Yep. Accidents are fine.
Yep.
Deliberate disobedience.
Love it. And last one, unrealistic expectations.
Yeah, I have them.
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah. I mean, I guess it depends on who's defining the reality. For most people, probably the expectation I have for my kids is unrealistic, but I don't really waver from it. It's a pretty high expectation at our house. It really is, and I think there has to be a personal understanding of if you're gonna set a high expectation, you probably need to have a little more give while they're learning. Because if you're setting the bar really high, they're probably going to fail more often. If you think about like a pole vaulter, if I start them at the top of the pole, they're probably going to miss the mark a lot before they figure out how to get over it.
Right.
So I need to be aware of that to where I'm conscious of that, and I'm not losing my mind every time they fall. But once I know they got it, like what you were talking about, the expectation is the expectation, and we're gonna stick with it. But I don't know if I know what you're asking. Unrealistic, like something that's just stupid.
Yeah, you just can't do it.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I've seen some people who, they like I was saying before, they gauge themselves on what they did in their prime or what they did when they did the same thing, and that could be unrealistic if the child is just not equipped or able.
Mm-hmm.
They may be stronger in something else, so don't keep pushing them down something that they're. I like to pull the strengths. Like, what are you really good at?
Mm-hmm.
And let's foster that. I'm not really worried about the things you're not that great at. Those will come in time. But the one things that you are good at, I want to help you become the best at that. Because that's going to pay you dividends.
Well, like Josh said earlier, like your kids are different. They're all different.
They're all different.
I can tell you right now that Cash is probably going to be a better athlete than Owen is. That's great. That being a great athlete doesn't make you a better person. Owen's going to be better at a million other things than Cash is.
Yeah.
I'm just telling you, like he really will.
He's a brainchild, dude. He's so smart.
He's brilliant, but neither one of those they're both awesome.
Yeah.
And that's what you like you said, you find out kind of how they're made and how they're wired and what their abilities are, and you build those. But I don't expect both of them to be great at the same thing.
Right.
I expect both of them to be great.
Correct.
That's what I expect.
And that's the thing I think most people don't get. They set these expectations because they're not. It's what they did, but it's not your child is not you. And I think that's the disconnect. Anything to add?
No, we have unrealistic expectations in my house too. I mean, we hold ourselves to a high standard, but I have unrealistic expectations for myself. I talk to my kids all the time about doing stuff that just seems crazy, and I'm going to do it. But there's also an I don't want to say unimaginable. I think it's a crappy word. There's there's a lot of encouragement. We'll just put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of encouragement in my house that comes with the expectations.
Yeah.
Like, we're going to do some badass shit. And the whole time we're on the way, we're going to fail. But at some point, you're going to look back at the other kids your age and you're going to go.
Maverick at 5 years old is going to say, Dad, we just did some badass shit.
Yeah. We just did some badass shit.
We did it, Dad.
Yeah.
We did it.
But that's the thing, though. If you have high expectations, which we call them high expectations, which, like Cameron said, I think a lot of people would see them as unrealistic. Like, you really expect your kids to do that?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I expect any adult that I'm around to do that.
Yeah. And that's the thing, but it comes with a ton of encouragement behind that, because Cameron's got a good point. If you live life on the edge and you are pushing your children to get better, and not in a negative sense, it's an exciting sense. Mm-hmm. And when you use words like, hey, this is going to be challenging, it gets them excited about moving to the next level. Mm-hmm. And then, they get a little bit older and, whatever they decide to do. And that's like Mia Hamm's story. Like, that's crazy. Like, she loved soccer. And her parents constantly pushed her, and they would say she had unrealistic expectations. She was playing an age group ahead of where she should be in soccer. If you don't know who Mia Hamm is, she's probably one of the greatest female soccer players ever. Mm-hmm. She was playing a year ahead when she was in middle school in the boys' league. Mm. That's an unrealistic expectation to try to compete in that.
Yep, that's why she's one of the best.
But that's why she is one of the best, and that's one of those things. Like, we're not at that extreme. But obviously, when I have my daughter, we will be.
Sure enough.
No, but there's a lot of encouragement that comes with that. Yeah, I guarantee you, her parents were in her corner the whole time, going, "You are awesome.
Yeah,
you are awesome. Fall down, get up again. Fall down, get up again. You're killing it." Mm-hmm. And then when she looks at all the other people, and that's why everybody looks at her and goes, "It's unbelievable what you've done." Well, before it was unbelievable expectations. Now it's unbelievable achievement.
Maybe they just don't believe.
Maybe they just don't believe like we do. Yeah,
right. Well, we have realistic expectations because in our mind, we see it being done.
We have high.
But it's high.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, saying you still know that it's going to get done.
Highly realistic.
Where people,
highly realistic.
Well, what I'm saying is
highly probable.
You have other parents out there that set these expectations that are unrealistic because they don't believe it'll actually get done.
Sure.
And then they beat their child for not doing it or whatever they do as a parenting, which drives me up the wall. But all right, so we're going to be wrapping up. We're going to talk about capturing your hearts of your children. And how does the following affect your children? Your attention. We talked about that in the others, but you have to give them attention. You can't just expect to, have a child that loves you or that you have their heart. The idea of this is to have them love you, to the way you love them. In a sense, is kind of like how I capture
feed
the
his
heart.
ass. He better love him.
Yeah, right. But in a sense, you have to give them attention. Just like if you were to have a dog and you just left him outside the whole time, he ain't gonna really love you. He's gonna be excited that you're gonna come out there and finally, take care of him. But good attention, positive attention.
Yeah, no, I mean, you have to spend time with your kids. We talked about that. Show your kids attention. Show that you care about the things they care about. That you care about them. Just being with them and doing things with them. I mean, that whole deal, like of just dad wanting to hang out with you, man. That was one of the greatest blessings of my childhood. Is that my dad and I did a lot of stuff together. The things I wanted to do were the things he wanted to do, and it wasn't always that way, but it was. A lot of stuff, and it was reciprocated. I wanted to be around him because he wanted to be around me, and I think there's this whole generation, or if not two, that are like. They don't have that deep of a bond because dad didn't say, you know what, my stuff doesn't matter today. I'm going to focus on my kids' stuff.
Right.
And I'm just going to be with them.
Or they just didn't try.
Well, yeah. They didn't try or they didn't care. You said something earlier about how much you love your kids, and it's hard to explain. We were talking about that. And I know this to be true. I don't know what their feeling or lack of feeling is inside, but it still to this day just blows my mind that people can just give their kids away or or totally neglect them or not care or whatever. I mean, like, there's obviously something broken in their soul to where that does. I don't know if they just don't feel it or if they just smother that feeling, or I don't get it, man. Like, it's just nauseating to me to see a parent that literally could just care less if they see their kid. How is it possible?
I don't understand that either.
Anyways,
I think you're right with what you said. I mean, obviously. Giving your kids attention is very important, and being present is very important. But I also think that and this goes in line with everything that we just talked about. There's a balance involved with what you do.
Of course,
I see a lot of parents that give their kids too much attention, so their kids believe that their parents' world revolves around them. Whereas what your kids should truly see is that they fit into your world.
Correct.
Your world does not revolve around that child. Now, does that mean that you just ignore them and you're like, whatever? No, that means that kid should have a very clear understanding that your wife and that household are the priority and they live in it. Mm-hmm. Now, they get attention, all the attention they need, but don't constantly give your kid attention and be at their beck and call. Yeah, dude.
Yeah,
can't. I've seen that. Man, too. I've seen people doing stuff like that, and I'm like, dude, they got two legs. Like,
well, then they get to an age where that's all they've ever known, and they still expect it, and it'll make you want to punch them in the face.
It's called entitlement. Man. We have a lot of it, and that's the problem. We've lost the ability to balance these things, and that creates some requires some kind of critical thinking and stuff like that, but we don't balance it. So now we have a lot of extremes. We've got the entitled group that thinks that everything should revolve around them. And then we have the resentful, rebellious group over here that's been either mistreated or didn't get attention or their parents weren't around and stuff like that. And we've created extremes on both sides. Now, have they been there? Yeah, they've probably always been there. I don't know about at this magnitude. And maybe it's just they have more of a voice now than what they have in the past, but
I'd say that's the case.
I believe we have a lot on both sides that are the entitlement stuff. There's the middle of the road, the people that have learned how to balance, the two, because you got to be independent and you got to be, interdependent. You got to be able to do both. But I don't know.
Yeah,
entitlement's a real problem.
It is a problem.
It's a real problem.
So there's a balance in the attention that you give. So just make sure that you're not, like what JP was saying, revolving all of your activities around your child. It's not about that. It's about you and your wife and having them involved in your family. Mm-hmm. Affirmations, positive reinforcement, even if they fail. Say, hey, especially if they gave it their best effort. Now, I always ask my son that. It's like, hey, you failed, but did you give it your all? Yeah. Okay, then. You just have to improve. You have to get better. Mm-hmm.
I mess with mine all the time with that. Did you do your best? Yeah. Well, your best wasn't good enough. Whatever. I'm telling you right now, my kids will have so much shit talked to them while they live in my household that when they get out to the real world, ain't nothing going to bother them. I'm telling you right now, my kids, we love, and you guys know, my wife and stuff, like, we love our kids. They know we love them. There's no doubt in my mind that they know it. But There ain't no easy
But
roads.
I was about to say, but the only easy day was yesterday.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I mess with them all the time. Now it's in love,
Yeah,
you know,
sure.
and they know it. But I'll do that to Maverick. Did you try your best? Yeah. Well, it wasn't good enough, was it? Whatever, Dad. Like maybe next time we should try a little harder. Huh?
Yeah.
You got more in the tank.
You were giving him so much smack talk about that Spider-Man game. That was hilarious.
Oh yeah.
He was getting his butt beat by a girl on the game. He goes, dude, you letting a girl beat your butt like that?
I was talking so much trash to him, dude.
It was awesome.
chauvinistic.
It pushed him. It pushed him.
I know. He did end up
He
beating
did beat
her.
her. Yeah, finally. Then he came out afterwards. He was like, I beat it. I beat the game.
Yeah.
After a day.
One day.
Yeah, $60 game one day. The third one is affection.
Third one, damn. How many?
There's 4.
Oh, I
got
thought
one
you
more.
meant third overall, the whole thing.
No. So there's less to capture a person's heart. There's a lot of bad things that you don't want to avoid, like we went over, which is awesome. But the 4 things here is what really grabs them. Affection, proper affection, not the baby-ish kind of stuff that we're talking about.
Touch.
And then what we were talking about is heart-to-heart talks. So that's the last one. So heart-to-heart talks, we all sit down, eye to eye, on the ground, like on the knee or whatever at their level, say, look, who are you? You know, or whatever the case may be. And
Or asking questions, you know, like we talked about, like, what's going on? You
Yep.
know, like, what's the deal? I don't know why but that's my whole, as always, what's the deal? What's the deal?
Yeah.
You know, tell me. Especially because Owen's real big about, I can tell he's upset about something, but he won't necessarily want you to know he's upset, or he won't vocalize it, but he'll just be like, you can tell he's holding something in. I'm like, dude, what's the deal? What's going on? Nothing. He's like me, nothing. Like, he just gets quiet when he's frustrated. And then I finally get it out of him, and then we have a chance to talk about it, you know? Sometimes the answer is, well, go punch Cash, damn. He's such a good big brother. Well, Cash did this. Well, next time, do it back.
Oh, I say that all the time.
Beat
You get them.
He steps into a big boy's role, and I mean,
That's
yeah,
right.
it's part of it.
That's right. I tell Braylon that. I said, look, if Maverick's over here hitting you, you wear him out, and then I hear Maverick. I'm like, hey, dude, you asked for it. You asked for it.
Yeah.
What was the question?
well, the last 3 is affection and heart-to-heart talk.
Oh yeah, that's I probably so the affection part, you know, the hugs, we're hugging family anyways, and I want to make sure that my kids know that their dad, you know, truly loves them, you know, and stuff like that. So we have heart to heart conversations all the time, and I probably have it more than I should, because Dina will check me every once in a while. She'd be like, "Dang, dude, you having another conversation with him?" I'm like, "What?
Are you talking about it
She's
again?
like, my God, what is?
Ashley
what's
does the
going
same
on?
thing with me. She's like,
Another conversation?
I think he gets it. Or,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
I don't think he's going to understand what you're trying to go because
Yeah.
I'll go too deep or something.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah. So in wrapping up, guys, you guys know what the deal. You know the drill. Go follow us on social media. Best way to find out where we're at and what links that you can get to is shepherdsof.men. Just go to there and it'll have everything there for your viewing pleasure. If you are listening, struggling with something in life, though, reach out. We would like to help if at all possible. Like, seriously, that's a true deal. Like, if you have any issues that you're running into, if you've listened to any of our podcasts and it brought up some questions, or maybe, you know, want to try to deal with some of your past or whatever the case is, we're not a hairy trash can with a hairy lid. But if you want to work through some things, yeah,
we're
we're
also
either.
not professionals.
And we're not professionals. But if there's something out there that we could possibly help with, man, we'd love to have a chance to reach out to you and talk to you and see what we can come up with. But yeah, we've enjoyed our time with you guys. I don't know what this last note was. That's why it threw me off. I'm like, what the? I must have been talk texting.
Somebody fixes.
Yeah.
What do you call the thing that Biden reads off of?
Teleprompter. Teleprompter messed me up on this one.
Somebody text him in the middle.
No, it's just like
"Do you want Taco Bell?" Wait, what?
No, apparently I just couldn't read. We have a finite time with our kids. So, treat it like that. You know, you only have so much amount of time, and you want to teach them correctly and do the right thing as a father and be the father in their life. Be present, be available. But, dude, guys, just go become. You've been part of the movement.